A heartbreaker for the San Francisco 49ers, their first loss of the 2023 season, 1970 at the Cleveland Browns. Rapid react style. What went right? What went wrong? And still some game balls to give out here for week 6. Coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you on this Rapid React episode. Post-game 49ers Browns. Appreciate all the everydayers jumping into the chat here, as you do every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So we appreciate you. Make sure you guys are all subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Woo! Money Moody, he lined it up. The 49ers went down the field. As ugly as this game was, the 49ers had an opportunity to win it. Jake Moody just missed the field goal, Croc, and the 49ers take their first L of the season in Cleveland. There's tons to get into on this podcast, but what is your initial takeaway in this game, seeing the 49ers fall for the first time in 2023?
It was a tough game, and you can watch it early on and see that, it was kind of sloppy, and there was a missed opportunity early on that I think kind of changed the dynamic of this game. On a free play, I believe it was, Brock Purdy had Christian McCaffrey down the sideline and overshot him on the throw. And to me, I looked at my brother, I'm like, man, that's a big throw right there. Because you get a quick score, maybe you get a stop, and then you have another opportunity to score before halftime. I think the game ends up looking a lot different. But Kyle Shanahan said that, you heard them talk about on the broadcast, that he wanted to see us go through adversity. He wanted to be an ugly game. He said, don't worry about your stats in this game. 49ers stats were ugly, and the loss was probably a little bit uglier.
No doubt. Do we need to talk, because I know people are going to, and I already see it in the chat, they're going to talk about the officiating and the penalties. So I think we got to get through this one right away, because there was a lot of penalties, both sides. Someone would say maybe over officiated football game. The big one, though, was on that fourth quarter drive that was kept alive when 31 was called for that penalty, right? And it's a bang-bang play. They called the penalty on Tashawn Gibson, hitting a defenseless receiver. It looked clean to me, looked clean to the guys on the broadcast. Do you think the 49ers got jobbed in this one by bad officiating, Croc?
I think anytime you leave a game up to the referees to decide how this game is going to go for you, then you're probably setting yourself up for failure. So I don't care about the referees. I think there were things that the 49ers could have done better. Again, I thought all the way around kind of just a sloppy game. There were some missed throws. There were some turnovers. That was one of the things that we wanted to see the 49ers not do, right? And if I don't even know what to call this team, the Browns were going to win this game, it was going to be because the 49ers turned the ball over. So, that was one of the keys. Take care of the ball, which they have been doing. You throw an interception. You put the ball in harm's way several times. You go to throw a pass. You really kind of fumble it, whatever that was. Again, missed overthrows. I felt like this was more 49ers doing than the refs or anyone else.
Is Brock Purdy not a mutter, Croc? Do you think the rain affected Brock Purdy in this game as much as the Browns defense did? Because I've seen a lot of people asking me directly, is Brock Purdy going to be someone who the elements bother more than other quarterbacks potentially?
Well, it definitely looked to bother him in this game. And, it is kind of hard to tell. Is it all the elements? Which clearly there were some plays where it was the elements, but was there also the element of the Browns defense, which everybody said was really good? Our thing was not even overlooking the Browns defense, but it was more so about, we just have not seen a team stifle the 49ers. We haven't seen them have a bad game for the entirety of a game offensively. So it's not like this could not have happened. It was just we just haven't seen it. So until we see it, then we'll kind of adjust and go from there. Well, I thought the Browns played really good defense. And again, the 49ers missed opportunities. So I think it really comes more down to that. As far as being a mutter or not, I don't know if Brock has smaller hands. Sometimes you see guys not be able to get a grip on the ball. And when throwing in those type of inclement weather. So it wasn't his best game. It was his worst game. It was the elements a big part of it. Maybe that is why it looked the way that it did.
I think it played a little bit of a role, but I want to go to Joshua here in the chat, who I think is correct, summing it up. He says, Purdy will be fine. The Browns defense is for real. This is coming from a Browns fan. And so a few Browns fans I see in the chat here, and that's where I want to go first here. Those two elephants in the room, I wanted to get those out of the way because the biggest story to me in this football game is clearly the Cleveland Browns defense is better than the Dallas Cowboys defense, Croc. And the Jim Schwartz, whatever he has, the mojo he has on Kyle Shanahan is real. And the Browns talent on defense is real. So the first, you might even want to throw out a game ball, right, to Jim Schwartz and the Cleveland Browns defense, because they're for real and they did a number on the 49ers, and especially how well they rebounded after the first series where it looked like the 49ers were going to dice them up all game, and that ended quickly.
Real quick, I talked about missed opportunities. We talked about being a mutterer and whatnot. We know who's not a mutterer, or who at least wasn't in this game. I think the kicker, Moody, was probably more of not being a mutterer than Brock Purdy, even though they both didn't have their A games. But, as far as, the Schwartz thing, that actually popped in my head at some point. And I was looking and I was watching the TV. They showed him on the sideline. And I said, dang, like that was something that was real. It was a real statistic, how he's kind of dominated Kyle Shanahan. And he dominated him again today.
Do the 49ers miss Robbie Gould, Croc? In a game where field goals really mattered, Dustin Hopkins missed one for the Browns, but he was 4 of 5. Jake Moody hit one, but he was 1 of 3, missed 2 key field goals, including the potential game winner after Hopkins hit the actual go-ahead and what turned out to be the game winner right before him there. So what do you think about Jake Moody, and do the 49ers miss Robbie Gould right about now? Because a lot of folks in the chat do.
I don't want to get to overreactions. I think a lot of times it's much easier to overreact in a game where you feel like, oh man, it should win by 2 touchdowns. I mean, come on, you're playing against third-string quarterback from the Cleveland Browns. But hell, we saw 49ers beat a lot of teams with third-string quarterback last year. So maybe PJ Walker is the answer to some of their offensive woes. He tried to give the game to the 49ers. Niners didn't take it. But as far as the kicker goes, no, I'm not going to overreact. Moody had been money throughout this year. They showed a stat at the beginning of the game. He had made 100% of his field goals. He had been awesome on extra points as well. He had a bad game kicking, and I would just leave it at that. You need the guy. Again, Kyle said he wanted to see this team go through adversity. And ideally, you would like to see them go through the adversity and kick the game-winning field goal. And it's like, oh, man, I'm glad we snuck out of there. We dealt with a lot of adversity. That's awesome. Well, you lost. You didn't get the W. But even then, the adversity part of it is the same. And now you have another week to kind of, go out there, improve, get better, and hopefully get healthy, because you've got a couple banged-up guys with McCaffrey and Debo Samuel.
Oh, no doubt. More getting into the injuries here in a little bit here. I just want to wrap it up with 2 of the biggest stories here for the 49ers, which was Moody, 1 for 3, the 2 misses for the rookie kicker, did miss the game winner there. And then Brock Purdy, his worst game as a 49er, talking about adversity. He did bring the 49ers back in position to kick that field goal, but kind of too little too late. And 12 of 27 passing was Brock Purdy in this game, 125 yards, 1 touchdown, his first interception of the season as well, 55.3 rating. A lot of really short passes in this game from both sides. I don't know what the record is for screen passes and swing passes and stuff like that in a game, but this one had to be pretty close because it was just a lot of short stuff. He did make a couple of good throws, I will say. Brock Purdy, especially that 3rd down earlier in the game that IU couldn't haul in, but then just did seem a bit off on a lot of throws. A couple to Ayuk late. You mentioned the other one that he missed that was pretty obvious. Ball slipping out of his hands a little bit. So it's clearly Brock Purdy's worst game of his NFL career, worst game of this season, and the 49ers come up short, losing to the Cleveland Browns 19-17.
Yeah, you talk about just not being the best version of Brock Purdy. I mean, he was very, very, very inaccurate. And late in that game, was it on maybe the first throw? on that last drive, he threw it right to Newsome. Newsome.
Greg Newsome,
Greg Newsome in the corner.
He jumped it. Yeah, it was like a little hitch or something, and he jumped that one. He
but it was kind of behind. It was kind of behind Juwan Jennings. That's the throw I'm talking about. Jennings ran like an in, and gave him an opportunity. So yeah, not Brock Purdy's best game at all. It almost felt like when I was watching it, and the person standing next to me, because again, I'm in Reno, Nevada right now. I'm at the hotel casino and all that, and there's a lot of 49er fans in there watching the game. And I looked at one of the guys and I said, you know what? For everything that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't, a lot of times when he'd have a game like this, which was really bad, he'd figure out a way to put them in field goal range. And 49ers kind of relied on that a lot, right? Because games were much closer than they had to be because of him. But then at the end, his percentages of comeback wins in the fourth quarter was like the highest. The only person that was higher than him was Tom Brady. So yeah, it felt like that. And then boom, Brock Purdy did it. It's like you have a terrible game. You fought through adversity. Yeah, I had a bad throw on that first drop, but you kept swinging. Got a call on the Juwan Jennings pass interference, but you kept going, hit Ayuk a couple of times, and the 49ers had an opportunity to win this game.
Yep, 49ers had an opportunity. You got to give a lot of props to the Cleveland Browns, who played really well in this game, including P.J. Walker. We're going to talk about their quarterback driving down the field for game-winning drives without Deshaun Watson. Some injuries for the 49ers, and of course, we got to give out some game balls as well in this 19-17 loss for the 49ers in Week 6 next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by the Gametime app. You shouldn't have to worry when you're trying to buy tickets for your next big event, right? And so with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Gametime takes care of the guesswork and takes all of the madness out of buying tickets. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sporting events: football, baseball, basketball, concerts, music, comedy, theater events, every kind of event you need tickets for. You can find them on Gametime. The best part of it is you can see the view of your seat while you're shopping for tickets before you buy. So you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And when you buy those tickets with just a couple of taps, you don't have to search through emails. It's going to be right there on the app for you. And how about the guarantee from Gametime? The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the most fun you will have playing daily fantasy sports. And while you're having fun playing, you can also win up to 25 times your money this football season. All you do is you pick 2 or more players on PrizePicks, and then you pick more or less than their projected stats on the PrizePicks app. Then you place your entry and you wait and see how your players did, and you could potentially turn, say, $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Couldn't be more simple at PrizePicks, and you can make your entries in just 60 seconds or less. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players, sports, and stat types to choose from. And with PrizePicks reboot policy, the first in the industry, your entries can stay in play even if one of your players gets hurt for NFL and college football top 25 matchups. If you have a player that exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with that injury insurance. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or download the app and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Okay. The injuries, Croc. It was a tough one. It was a tough one with injuries. Debo Samuel left really early in the game after, by the way, the pregame scuffle with both Debo and Trent involved. And then the 49ers lost them both early in the game. Debo stayed out. Trent Williams did return to the game. Then Christian McCaffrey, after a phenomenal opening drive, was getting stifled for the most part. He had an oblique injury, left the game, tried to trot back on the field, got one more carry, and then headed back to the locker room for the rest of the game. And I want to stop on the Christian McCaffrey injury, Croc, because I think there's like a still frame, and they showed it, and I was actually trying to find a photo of it. Maybe they'll update more photos, but I was trying to use it as the thumbnail for this podcast to show Christian McCaffrey, blood on his uniform, his jersey's ripped, and you just see the brutality of being a workhorse NFL running back and what they go through. And especially in this type of a game that felt like a really throwback, old school, bad weather football game, right? And leaning on your best players and leaning on that run game and in a really physical game against a really good defense. It's going to be so hard for Christian McCaffrey to stay healthy for 20 games. And it's just a little reminder. And something we've talked about earlier on in the season, just a little reminder that this is one of your best players. If you want him healthy in January, maybe chill out on Christian McCaffrey a little bit, as good as he is, because he's a warrior and he's trying to get back into the football game. And it's almost like you got to save him from himself. It's like, no, Christian, don't come back into the game as much as we need you right now. He's bloody. It was that still frame of Christian McCaffrey on the sideline. I just think said a lot about him, his mentality, the way the 49ers play, how this game was going, and really kind of summed it all up, seeing him kind of bloody and battered, trying to fight his way back into the game to win it for the 49ers.
It's tough, right? And we know running backs, they just get hurt. And the interesting thing, I'd say, or something you don't see a whole lot of, is a guy play as many straight games as Christian McCaffrey has for the 49ers. He went into the postseason banged up a little bit. I think he had a kind of a calf injury they were kind of keeping an eye on. But heading into this game, and I talked to one of the 49er fans while I was watching the game, and he said, man, Christian McCaffrey's been really good for y'all, huh? Like, he's been doing a great job of staying healthy. I'm like, yeah, but knock on wood, don't jinx it here. And next thing you know, a quarter later, you can tell he's a little banged up. You see him stretching on the sideline. So that's tough. But the 49ers, even you lose him, you lose Debo, and maybe that's the bigger story, right? Because we've talked a lot about who's the most important player on the 49ers, who's the MVP, and Brock Purdy's playing at a very high level. You lose a couple of those guys, now what does it start to look like, right? And you still have George Kittle, you still have Brandon Ayuk and some of the other guys, but how much weight does Debo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey have on their shoulders to where now the offense starts to look a lot different when you take those two guys away?
One of the injured players that came into the game that was already hurt and did not play is Dre Greenlaw. And I've seen quite a few people bring up Dre Greenlaw. Dan says definitely missed great Dre Greenlaw today. Greenlaw, if he would have been out there, would have ate today. Seen a few more comments about Dre Greenlaw. Croc, do you think the 49ers missed Dre Greenlaw? Because they held the Browns to 19 points. That's a game that I think the 49ers in most cases think they should have won. To me, it was more about the 49ers offense against the Browns defense than the 49ers defense not coming to play and not being good enough in this one.
I thought for the most part, the front guys played well. Now, there was an opportunity late in this game for Oren Burks to have an interception, and I don't know, one guy tipped it or whatever, but it looked like he was throwing it to a linebacker. And we know Greenlaw, he's been prone to kind of make a big play in that moment. We know Oren Burks had an interception last week, but in the end zone to try to keep points off of the board so the 49ers can win this game, the ball ended up hitting the ground. So I think you do miss Dre Greenlaw, but ultimately I thought the defense, you give them 19 points. Like, that's not Dre Greenlaw. Yeah, you miss him, whatever. That's not why you lost. And you got to go back to what you could control. You missed some kicks, and you had an opportunity. I mean, technically kind of a chip shot field goal at the end of the game that veered right. Like, that's why you lost. And the saying, if you talk to coaches and players, the game is won or lost on about 3 plays, and 2 out of those 3 plays was your kicker.
The Cleveland Browns led. Yeah, it's a good point. And the Cleveland Browns led the time of possession 33 to 27 about. And if the 49ers offense holds on to the ball a little better in a couple drives, you keep the Browns offense off the field, and that score is probably even lower. So I don't think it was a defensive letdown at all. I thought the 49ers defense came to play. I thought it was really good defense on both sides. And so I got to credit the Browns defense again in this one. And I think that's more the story of this game. Looking at PJ Walker, Croc, 18 of 34 passing. He did have a couple of picks, but could have had a third interception. That was kind of the story of this game too. It's not like PJ Walker diced up the 49ers. They did run for 160 yards on the ground. The Browns did 34 carries. That was an emphasis for them, getting the ball out of Walker's hands quick, a lot of screen passes and stuff like that. But the 49ers missed opportunity for more interceptions. The Browns missed opportunities for more interceptions. as well. And so, some missed opportunities on both sides potentially in this game. We tend to look at it at one-sided, but I thought PJ Walker overall, especially against this defense, played pretty well. And he took the Browns down the field and put them in position to go win the football game. So good on PJ Walker. He impressed me. I didn't think the Browns, and it's not because the Niners defense didn't play well. I thought this was going to be a game where it was tough for the Browns to even get, double-digit points.
When you have a third string, first of all, PJ Walker played awesome, because when you have a third string quarterback in, and okay, maybe another week away from Deshaun Watson coming back, you just have to figure out a way to win the game. And he turned the ball over. He wasn't perfect, but he made enough throws. And there was some big throws and passes that were in really good spots. Hitting Amari Cooper on that sideline where he jumped over 2 defenders and caught the ball and toe tapped on the sideline. But, they're going to show that play and they're going to talk about the catch. But what about the placement? Putting your receiver in position to be able to potentially come down with the ball, right? So it wasn't perfect or great for him. Again, multiple picks. Tried to throw a pick on their last drive in the end zone, but he did enough to win the game. So in my opinion, for your third string quarterback, he played awesome.
Unfortunately for the 49ers, they came up a little bit short in this one. 19-17 Browns. The potential game winner did not split the uprights for the 49ers. So they come up with their first loss of the season, 5-1. Now the Browns 3-2. It was a really big game for the Cleveland Browns, going from a game under 500 to a game over 500. 49ers still in a really good position. It was very unlikely that they were going to run the table this year, right? And maybe just the punch in the mouth that they needed, that the 49ers needed, just to remind them that there's no easy opponents in the NFL, and there's some very tough opponents. And so good on the Browns. They played good in this football game. I thought the 49ers came to play as well. It did not go their way in this game. Some things that they can absolutely clean up. We'll get more information on some of the injuries a little bit later in the week, Croc, but we've got to give out some game balls next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. Really, it's no different than the NFL. You're trying to hire the best coaches. You're trying to hire the best players for your football team, right? And you want to be certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you do is you add your job to your purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and it spreads the word that you're hiring. And then utilize simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on the perfect candidates with the perfect skill sets and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and eventually hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Last one before we finish up this episode, Croc, on with the game balls here. We already gave a game ball out to Jim Schwartz in the Browns defense, which I think was the biggest standout story of this football game. There was some really good points of this 49ers game and the 49ers team and individuals on the 49ers, even though they did not come up with the W, in my opinion. But a couple of things I want to talk about. The screen passes were crazy in this game. I would love to know the number of them and what the NFL record is. I'm sure there's been some other games where there's been a lot of screen type passes. But do you think Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns, almost lost this game for his team with the fourth down decisions? Like that. PJ Walker came through and he completed it on the 4th and 4, but to not go for it before that on the 4th and 1, such a higher level of difficulty for the Browns to make the 4th and 4 rather than the 4th and I think less than 1 on just one drive earlier.
Yeah, that one was kind of shocking for me, especially for a coach who typically in that situation, you're not supposed to win. So you kind of play with this kind of balls to the wall mentality, and it's just like whatever happens, happens. So yeah, I was a little surprised by the first one of not going for it, and then obviously when they did go for it and they were able to convert, good job by them, good throw, good timing and rhythm by PJ Walker, but yeah, that was tough.
Blake in the chat says Moody needed to miss now, not later. Can't blame the refs. We needed to be better. Hard when players are getting hurt. Happy Williams isn't gone for the season. Yeah, well said there. And back to the Moody miss thing.
I disagree.
You disagree with
miss now or later, like kickers, like no, you just make your kicks. Like I don't think it's like, oh, what because he missed these ones, now he's just going to be good from here on out. He can miss this one, then miss the next two. Because a lot of times with them, it's more like a golf shot where it could start to get a little weird. Now again, there was weather, there was wind blowing, etc. But I don't think him missing kicks in this game means that in the next games, like okay, like he got that out of his system, now he's going to make all his kicks. If he's going to make his kicks, he's just going to make his kicks, not because he missed a couple of kicks in the game that potentially could have won the game for you.
Well, here's the thing: is he hasn't had a lot of high leverage kicks in the regular season because the 49ers have been rolling. That was a game winner. That's his first, regular season game winning kick. You make the kick, you win the game. You miss the kick, you lose the game. So that's big to just kind of see him go through that. And at least he's experienced that now, so he knows what that feeling is. Can he improve on it now that he's missed one of those and he's seen one of those? But I think he overcorrected because he missed the first one left, then he missed the next one right, Croc? So I think there's a lot of that, and there's so much of that goes through ahead of a kicker. It's why older kickers are usually the better kickers, and it takes kickers a little while to get their foothold in the NFL, no pun intended, because of those types of things. And hopefully it doesn't start a pattern of Moody missing kicks, but I'm not worried about him because he's made a bunch of kicks too. So we'll see. It's definitely not time to jump off the Moody ship quite yet. My game ball for the 49ers, my first one, Croc, goes to Randy Gregory. Welcome to the team, Randy Gregory. I thought he looked good. I thought he looked like a rotational piece and maybe even the second best defensive end on the team. Got in the backfield multiple times, got his first sack as a 49er. I mean, all thumbs up, I think, for me with Randy Gregory. He had about 20, I think, snaps or so in this game. I don't know the official numbers, but that number might jump up by next week.
It will jump up. And again, that's the active player he was when he was in Dallas. And I don't know what happened in Denver. Their defense is terrible. Maybe guys just didn't want to play for them, whatever the case is. You got a fresh start over in San Francisco with this defense. And I thought he brought the same energy as all the other guys. So that's good. That's something to build off of. Obviously, again, you would like to see that type of performance in a win, in a victory, figure out a way to pull it out. But ultimately seeing that, we might have that at least pass rush down edge rusher to go opposite Nick Bosa and feel confident about that.
The Browns corner's really good. We talked with Jeff in our crossover podcast about Greg Newsome and how you and I had talked about him in the offseason. You were big on Greg Newsome in the draft. I remember Croc, and we were like, man, this guy might be available in trade. The 49ers maybe should take a look at this guy. And he was pretty good. Ward was really good in this game too. But the 49ers had a DB that I think we should give a game ball to, and that is Diamador Lenore. Had a huge interception, took it all the way down to the 8-yard line to set up a Jordan Mason touchdown. And at that moment of the game, I thought, man, the 49ers have this one.
Yeah, they had a big time opportunity there. Good job playing. It was almost like he played the back shoulder. So that's why when he looked and he was kind of stopped it and he was able to come down with the interception there. And that's what you want to see out of him. I understand early on he got dogged. And if I was on social media, which I wasn't looking at Twitter, they probably were like, get this guy out of here. He's getting whooped, fell on the ground. Amari Cooper runs off on him. Really big gain there to set the Browns up in scoring position. But ultimately, I thought he kind of held his ground. And he competed out there. There was a late slant that definitely didn't go in his favor. I think he got hurt in that. So I don't even remember paying attention to if he came back or not. But to see him have that, like, that's out of your 5th round guy, can he come up with some type of game-changing play? And he did. Just didn't change the game enough.
Oh, you got any game balls you want to give out before we go, Croc?
I'll give a game ball to Brock Purdy. And people used to hate when I did this with Jimmy Garoppolo, but when you see a guy have his worst game, right? Like that's his worst game. I am acknowledging that. Make sure everybody's clear. I do not think he had a good game, but we have not seen him battle through much adversity throughout his career with the 49ers. Outside of like the natural adversity of coming in mid-game for Jimmy Garoppolo against the Miami Dolphins and keeping it rolling, that could be considered adversity. The game against the Raiders, in that game, he faced some adversity in that, but it's been a lot of smooth sailing for him. And this game where it was absolutely the worst version of Brock Purdy that we have seen, throws inaccurate behind guys, throws an interception. It was as bad as it could get. But at the time where the 49ers really needed him to help put them in a scoring position, I thought he did that. He gave your team a chance to win, regardless of how ugly everything else was. So I know a lot of people, they're going to get on me about that, and they're going to be like, Croc, how dare you? But I did the same with Jimmy G when he would set them up, and I'm going to do the same thing with Brock Purdy. Terrible game, but he put the team in position to win, and that's the most important part for a quarterback.
Yeah, he took him down. If Jake Moody makes that game-winning field goal, we're talking about Brock Wordy, right? Brock Purdy with a W, like the whole Jimmy W thing, right? He got him down there. That wasn't perfect, and he got him in position to win the football game. So, a couple things go differently. We're probably talking about this game a lot differently with a lot of guys, and probably Purdy and Moody are the two biggest ones. One kick made, and it's a completely different story. The 49ers are, big, ugly win, get out of there, and are still undefeated.
My God, Mike Shields is killing me. He said, you got to set the bar so low. We didn't give nobody else a game ball. Like, the only person we gave a game ball, well, at least me, was Brock. And again, the bar, we want to talk about the bar for a game ball, like being low or high or whatever. I don't think there's a higher moment in that game, because whatever happens early in the game, like that happens. Whatever. Like, however poor I play at the quarterback position, but at the end of the day, you have an opportunity to come through at the end. And I thought at least Brock did his part in that. And we talk about Moody and wanting to see him face adversity. He didn't do his part, right? He missed early on. Okay, you got opportunity to come back and make up for it. And he didn't. Brock Purdy early, and he had opportunity to come, and he did it. So I appreciate that from a guy who I feel like most of his career to start so far has been really smooth sailing. There were missed throws. I get it, Mike. There were missed throws. There were bad, very inaccurate. I talked about it earlier. That throw to Christian McCaffrey, I think that changed a lot of the dynamic of this game. Missing that, it would have been a touchdown on a play where it's a free play. So you really just want to give your guy an opportunity to make a play as opposed to trying to be perfect with the throw. I get it. But even after all of that, he had an opportunity to put the 49ers in scoring position and did it. And the kicker missed. So I appreciate that from Brock.
A ton more to get into on this game in future episodes of Locked On 49ers. I want to nominate Fred Warner for a game ball in this one. He had a big interception in this game as well. Just his standard, his just being himself out there. Bosa got a sack. He was kind of unblocked on that one. I thought the 49ers front did well, but again, the Browns were just a little bit better on this day. And I think the key to this game is there's two big things, and a lot of it revolves around Brock Purdy. Okay, Christian McCaffrey left the game. You have to prove that you can go win without Christian McCaffrey. I think the 49ers can, but the thing that has to happen is Ayuk and Purdy in this situation needed to be dialed in together. And there was multiple times, 3 or 4 or 5 plays where either drop by Ayuk, just a little bit off from Purdy. You got to be on there if that's going to be potentially the future of your team. Beyond when a running back's shelf life is over. So bounce back time for the 49ers, Croc.
I'm actually, we put this last one, a lot of people, we've talked about, some of the coaching and things there. We talked about Brock Purdy. We talked about Moody. But the bigger person that we should be putting this on is Nicholas Winkler. Nick Winkler said the 49ers would start 5-0, and then they would lose 3 straight games. He tried to take it back. Nick, I'm not letting you take it back. He said it. He said 49ers are going to start 5-0, and then they're going to lose 3 consecutive games in a stretch. And so far, he's 100% on his guesses or what he was anticipating.
All right. Well, we'll see how that goes. We'll have a little conversation with Winkler on Wednesday, as we do every Winky Wednesday here. So far, Wink 100%, 6 for 6 in the first predicting the outcomes of the first 6 games of the season for the San Francisco 49ers. At BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. What do you guys think? We're going to dive more into this game, a little rewatch, talk more about the San Francisco 49ers team, some adversity. It's bounce back week now for the San Francisco 49ers going into week 7. And of course, Croc and I are going to have you covered every step of the way. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you guys are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Croc and I back tomorrow. Locked On 49ers.
Subscribe to this video.